Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports?
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011.
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
With a focus on football.
Second to go. This guy has had some year.
Al, I've got to tell you, in a pressure situation, I don't know if I have ever seen anybody be better than Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Wow, what a drive.
4th and 1. Burrow trying to keep it down. Gets spun down, gets it away. Incomplete. Rams down. Running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who?
Of course,
I mean, you don't even have to think about it.
pointing to the ring finger.
When everything was on the line for the Rams, yes, we know it was Aaron Donald.
But the Rams were built to win the Super Bowl, and they have sealed the deal.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, Justin, I know for certain one thing that's not happening, and that is the Rams winning the Super Bowl in back-to-back seasons after the way this season has gone.
Set the record today for most losses the season following a Super Bowl victory.
That Super
ever
Bowl
by a team.
hangover has been a thing for the better part of probably 2 decades or so.
And to be fair, if you look at they talk about it in the clip that we opened the show with, like that team was built to win the Super Bowl last year, and they did. And so I'm sure they don't regret it at all.
No, that can never be taken away from them.
They were open about how they were mortgaging their
Right,
future.
F them those picks, right?
Right.
That's like they literally had shirts and sweatshirts
They
made.
wore them to the parade. And I don't blame them. Like they won
No,
the Super
they got
Bowl.
it done, right? They got
Right.
it done.
But this is only the beginning for them. They're going to be paying for that. Could potentially be paying. They don't have
For
a
years.
first round pick for like another 5 or 6 years or something crazy.
Something absurd.
Yeah. Which Detroit, who is on the up and up, gets the Rams first round pick this year.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm very
And-
hopeful.
I'm not sure they take a quarterback. Like
No.
I don't think they do.
Their bigger problem when the Lions have looked bad has been defense.
Yeah.
By and large. I know there were a few hiccups they had
Right,
with
right.
offense at times, especially when they went to New England that week after they had a big win.
Yeah,
where they
that
put up all
was
those
bad.
points.
That
They
was
looked
bad.
bad against the Patriots.
But that was the only game. Well, they haven't lost games because of Jared Goff this year.
No,
Like, not
I
at
would
all.
say not
And
really.
Jared Goff has taken a team to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Now,
You can win with Jared Goff
they had like one of the worst offensive performances ever in that
in the Super Bowl, yeah.
But yeah,
But here we are, episode. I thought there was something. I don't know. I like numbers and aesthetics and things like that. I thought there was something a little
shocked.
poetic about us having episode 365 on the first day of a new year. It just, one of those coincidences that means nothing, but I liked it numerically
We're off by a
speaking.
day. It should have been yesterday.
But I subtitled or captioned this another garbage NFL season. And I don't mean that as in the NFL hasn't been entertaining, because as an outsider, from an outsider's perspective or just a general perspective, it's been actually a fantastic NFL season because we've had, by and large, more than half, 3/4 of the games every week, it seems, are one-score games, very close. We had lots of overtime. We've had a few ties.
There's lots of teams in it still.
There's a bunch of teams that have been in it up until like last week, this week. It's been exciting. It's been entertaining, and it's what everyone wants, and it's why NFL is king, no matter how you slice it. The NFL just destroyed the NBA on Christmas Day a week ago, obliterated them. And I know NBA isn't mad about what they got because their numbers actually went up from a year ago.
Right, yeah.
But the NFL not doubled, not tripled, not quadrupled. The NFL did 5 times the numbers of the NBA games did on Christmas Day. And I saw a post from a guy I love to hate, Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk, that the NFL will do everything possible to continue to have a triple header on Christmas Day, regardless of the day of the week it falls on. Now they get a little bit help now in this next like 6-year cycle when you include like the leap year aspect of skipping a day, which is coming up at the end of 2024. Everything will be shifted extra day, but he said he can't imagine a scenario where they don't do it, no matter if the day of the week is Tuesday or Wednesday. And those are the two biggest ones, because you can do it on a Monday, you can do it on a Thursday.
I get that, but the only thing is messing with the schedule like on a Tuesday or Wednesday in the last or second to last week of the season is a giant pain in the butt.
He said that there's logistical things that they have to take care of, but if the NFL sees those numbers, why wouldn't they do it?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And I'm reading that from a standpoint of I'm just there good.
Right, yeah. No.
Have 3 NFL games on every Christmas? Okay.
Right.
I came home and I saw at least parts of all 3 of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I did too.
Unfortunately for me, I got to see the ending of the first one. So I guess, Justin, let's just start there. I want to rip the Band-Aid off quickly.
Okay.
Because the Dolphins were 8-3.
Yeah.
Just
and looking
5 weeks ago.
And Tua was an MVP candidate.
They had won 5 in a row.
Statistically, the best quarterback in the league.
After losing 3 in a row, with the asterisk of Tua getting injured, losing that game, and then losing the next 2 games he missed, came back, won 5 in a row, 8-3. One of the best teams in the AFC with well, at the time, really, it was the Chiefs and, well, it was really the Chiefs. They were the only, because the Bengals were starting to come on, and the Bills were struggling.
Had hit their wall.
The Bills were struggling, and the Ravens, towards the end of that streak, Lamar Jackson went out, so we weren't sure what's going on with the Ravens. It was before the Jaguars got hot like they have now. The Jaguars and Dolphins have just taken opposite trajectories.
Can only be one good Florida team at a time.
And right now it's the Jaguars.
Yeah.
So,
including the Bucs.
Exactly. So even though they clinched another division title, first time Tampa Bay has ever won back-to-back division championships.
Which is funny because they didn't win it the year they won the Super Bowl.
Right. But the Dolphins have completely unraveled. Now, I hate losing to the Patriots. That sucks because we've been chasing them for 2 decades now. And I know my uncle is just waiting maybe for this show, maybe just to have time. He's got to put his drink down in Florida, where I believe he's back in Florida now for this time of the year. I believe he's returned. So he wasn't at the game, but my cousin Christine, who, like I mentioned 2 weeks ago, happy birthday. Her birthday was on Christmas Day. She was at the game today with their season tickets to the Patriots game. But it's just, it sucks losing the Patriots, but I knew it was going to be tough because we already knew Tua was out. Right. And not having your quarterback, who up until the last month had been playing as one of the best in the league.
Right.
So that was going to hurt. Then 2 of the offensive tackles, including your starting left tackle, who, when he is in, has been a game changer, out. Your supposed lockdown corner, although I contend that this was his worst year as a player in Miami this year, Xavier Howard, missing the game. And then also the pass rusher that you gave up a bunch of picks for, and a player, Bradley Chubb, also missed the game. Then during the game, your backup quarterback leaves in the early second half with a hand injury, and your 7th round rookie quarterback comes in again. This is the exact same thing that happened back in week 4 after Tua got knocked out against the Bengals. Bridgewater played the next week and he got knocked out. Skylar Thompson had to come in. He came in again today, and they lose to the Patriots. So I kind of expected this to happen when Tua went out and the injuries were announced.
Has Skylar Thompson only seen 2 games?
No, I think he's played in 3.
Okay, all right, but 2 of them are against the Patriots.
No, they beat the Patriots in week 1 with Tua. It was the Jets. It was the Jets. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater played, I believe, 1 play against the Jets and then was removed because a spotter saw concussion symptoms that literally no one else saw, nor did they exist on film anywhere. But whatever. No, they now lost 5 in a row, are sitting at 500, 8-8, cannot win double digits in the regular season, and now need help. They can't even take care of their own business to make the playoffs. They need help to get in now. Miami must beat the Jets next week in Miami. May or may not have Tua. No one knows what's going on there. It sounded like a lot of those guys that were held out today and this doesn't. I didn't get time to read it because it literally popped up in my feed right before we started the show, but it almost made it sound like if necessary, which seemed pretty necessary to me to make the playoffs, you needed to win. That Teron Armstead, Xavier Howard, and maybe even Bradley Chubb maybe could have tried to play. So I'm left like, what is going on? Why would you not have them?
It's different if you're like the Jags or the Titans, and I hated it on Thursday night, but like it's different because
'Cause
those
this week's games
nothing.
meant nothing, right.
Like that's different. This game meant something for the
Yeah.
Dolphins. They win. That is a huge leg up.
Well,
in
it puts
trying to
them.
make the playoffs.
Essentially would have. It might have knocked New England
I think it
out.
would have knocked the Steelers' chances out too.
Okay, but also would have made it really tough
it
for
would have
New England.
eliminated New England. I think.
Okay, yeah, because now they're both 8-8.
Because
If
they
Miami
would have been
wins, they're
right.
9-7, and New England would have been 7-9, 2-game lead, and the tiebreaker with Miami goes
Right.
to the Dolphins because they
Right.
would have beat them twice. So New England would have been all but out of it, I think.
Right.
Then, so now you lose with your third string quarterback, and we have no idea what's happening this week. Now the Jets have been knocked out because they lost to the Seahawks today, which is great, but.
And they
Now,
look bad.
now they have nothing to play for.
Someone said like the only good thing for the Jets today was they did get that reassurance that the future quarterback's not on the roster.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
it's not
like,
Mike White.
if-
And I know it wasn't, but if Mike White would have won today and he wins, then what do you do?
Well, we've
but-
seen that before.
Right. But it's not. It's Tyler Heineke.
Yeah,
like-
Taylor.
Yeah, sorry. And but Mike White did not do that today. It wasn't all him. It's just the Jets weren't very good today, which is okay with you.
In
But,
Seattle, right?
But you also just like the Jets need a quarterback, which is really tough because they took one number 2 overall last
Yeah.
year.
Well, did you see that thing today about how I guess 2 years ago?
No.
I guess 2 years ago, the Jets were poised to have the number 1 pick and then won 2 meaningless games against
Yes.
teams they were favored. I had
Yes.
forgotten about this
Yes.
until it popped up on
And
Instagram
Jags
before the
got
game
Trevor
today.
Lawrence.
The Jags lost, ended up 1-15 or 2-14 or whatever. They leapfrogged Jets or dropped below the Jets in the draft order. Took Trevor Lawrence, and while that didn't look great last year and early this year, things have seemed to
and-
have changed.
Right. I was willing from the start to pin a lot of that on Urban Meyer. But Trevor Lawrence also just didn't show it
But
last
both
year.
of us were also like,
Yes.
I don't know about
Yes.
this about Trevor Lawrence
Well,
and the
because
NFL.
Everyone talking about how he was a generational talent, and I'm like, I don't know. On the other hand, you look back at like what Clemson has done since he left too. Yeah, maybe he's better than I was giving him credit for. But also, Doug Pearson can coach circles around Urban Meyer in the NFL game. I'm not saying he's Urban Meyer was very successful in the college game, extremely successful in the college game.
And that's also not to say that Justin and I think Zach Wilson or Trey Lance is better than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was the best quarterback coming out in that draft class.
Yes,
but
yes.
I just don't know that he was as worthy as the number
Everyone
1
was
pick
saying
as
he was the
people
next
thought he
Peyton
was.
Manning and Andrew Luck, and I'm like, I don't know that he is.
Yeah, I
like,
was not sold on that
Right.
at all. And he's still not there. It's just he's showing progress where the other guys haven't had the opportunity or haven't showed any progress. So that's an interesting caveat surrounding the Jets because they sort of had it together relying on defense and a running game, but then Breece Hall got injured and lost for the year. Defense kind of cratered a little bit today against the Seahawks, but you can't always pin it on them. Not
thing
every
is,
defense
like-
is built like the 2000 Ravens.
right. And the Jets, like the crazy thing is, like I know they don't have great, but they have some young weapons on offense
Mm-hmm.
besides the quarterback. They've got really talented defense. Like they could be a quarterback away, which is crazy because they drafted a quarterback last year.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be an interesting quarterback market this offseason. I don't know that there's anyone out there that can get them over the hump or make them on par with the Bills, Chiefs, and Bengals. But it could make them an interesting team and get them a couple wins. You get a couple wins, you're in the playoffs because they're 7-9 and could finish 8-9 or 7-10. But if you flip 2 or 3 of those games, all of a sudden you're 10-7 and probably the 6th or 7th seed in the playoffs with young guys developing.
Right.
Now you're eventually going to have to take care of the quarterback position if they would get someone like Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo or whoever. But anyways, not to derail us and talk about the Jets, but it's amazing. Miami went 3-0. 0-3, 5-0, 0-5. They have had 4 different streaks.
Yeah, but if you win your next 7, you're on, like
They don't need to win 7,
right.
thankfully.
Well, yeah, but like we could wrap it into the preseason of next year.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
you'd be
I'm
okay
all
with
that.
that.
I am 100% okay for it. And this kind of ties into what I said to you beforehand. As long as they make the playoffs, and they have these rematches against a few teams that they've lost to, like the Bills, like the Bengals.
Well, we talked about it after that Bills game. Like, I know they lost that Bills game, but I left that game encouraged about the
And
Dolphins.
everyone was saying that
Because
too.
I'm like, they looked good. They looked good.
Well, the biggest issue now outside of today's game, which I don't want to call it an anomaly because they lost and they didn't look great doing it, but there was other things going on. The previous 2 losses, those are really frustrating because they had a 10-point lead against the Bills. Then they had a 10-point lead against the Packers all later in the game in the second half, and they couldn't get the job done. I don't know what the heck was going on with Tua at the end of the game last week.
Right.
That was just crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't like the weird stuff about the concussion things coming out because it almost felt like an excuse and not an actual medical thing until you see the video and he hits his head on the turf.
Right.
But again, NFL and NFLPA released that all protocols were fine
Right.
and that everything happened the way it should, or at least as it is written.
Right.
But who knows if he's going to play this year or ever again. Like in the offseason, would it surprise you if he just is like, I have to stop?
No, it wouldn't surprise me. And it would be disappointing, but I would understand.
Only
like,
because
it's
it felt
scary.
like he was maybe turning a corner. Like it
Yes.
felt like it was coming
halfway
on.
through the season, we were like, the question has been answered for the Dolphins. And I remember at the beginning of the year, preseason shows, I'm saying the biggest thing for the Dolphins is you want to see improvement, but you want to know at the end of the year, you want to have that question answered about quarterback. Is he our guy or is he not? And the problem is right now, based on all kinds of circumstances, one, some weird plays over the over the last couple games, but also the concussion injury situation. Like, I just don't think we're as close to having that answered as you would need to be, or I shouldn't say need to be, but as you would like to be, one way or the other.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
at Thanksgiving, I was feeling good.
Yeah.
And I knew, and we talked about it off
Yeah.
air because our schedule got messed up, but I knew there was a tough 3-game road trip coming up, and I just wanted them to go 1-2 in
Right.
those 3 games, and they couldn't do that. They went 0-3. Frustrating. Okay, but now you get a home game against a struggling Packers team, and then a game against the Patriots, who you've already beaten, and a game against the Jets, who you didn't have your starting quarterback. You can win 2 of those 3, right? At a minimum, you can win 2 of those 3. Well, now they've lost 2 of the 3. They don't even have a chance to win 2. Now you got to win your last game at home against the Jets. May or may not be with Tua at quarterback.
right. May or may not be without Bridgewater.
And you need help now to even make the playoffs. You have to hope that your rival, the Buffalo Bills, defeat the New England Patriots and that you take care of business against the New York Jets. I don't know if that's the only thing that has to happen. I don't know what's going on with a few of the other teams, but it's just amazing and frustrating and disappointing that things have changed so quickly on a season that looked very promising at multiple points just a month ago. Just 5 weeks ago, things just looked so good, and now it's not looking great. But just chalk it up to being a Dolphins fan over the last 23 years. Okay, actually 22 years, because Miami's last playoff victory was December 30th, 2000. Miami has not won a playoff game in 22 years. 22 years.
So I think the Dolphins are the first team out right now as
Okay.
of this moment.
Well,
They're
that's
the first
with
team out.
with two pending games,
Right.
which both
But-
could have implications.
Right,
in
but I
some
don't
way,
think
like
I don't
AFC
think they will
record
because
or-
I think. Well, yeah, I guess that could some tie-breaking scenarios, but basically they need the Patriots to lose to the Bills next week.
Yes, and they have to beat
and they have
the
to beat
Jets.
the Jets. And if they do, I think they'll be in. But there could be some weird things with the Steelers. But I think the Steelers need.
Well, Miami is the head-to-head tiebreaker with the Steelers.
then that's what they need. I'm almost certain that's what they need to happen.
So then they just need the Bills to beat the Patriots, and they have to beat the Jets.
I think so. Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, but even if
No, I get it.
they win with or without Tua, those questions aren't answered.
Right.
You're going to go into another offseason and be like, well, what are we doing? Like, we thought we had a quarterback. And even if he is the guy, is he going to be healthy enough
Maybe you go
to
after
be
Tom Brady again.
So, I don't know. It's been a frustrating. It's like, I would, this is always one of those 2020, hindsight. Was it better to be a Dolphins fan in the 90s where they were good,
But not
but
good
still
enough.
broke my heart and in my eyes underachieved, with Dan Marino, and then even the years with Jimmy Johnson when after Marino retired, they had some really good teams then too. They just couldn't get the quarterback issue fixed, but they were good. Like, they were still good. They were going to win 9 to 11 games a year and be in playoff contention. They just unfortunately couldn't get farther than the wild card or divisional round in the late 90s, early 2000s. But now, since like 2003, about 20 years ago, since the 2003 NFL season, they've only made the playoffs, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. I don't know which is
Right.
better. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
but you're also on the struggle bus right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You also have the built-in excuse, though, that the quarterback has been injured and missed the last 2 weeks.
Right.
And you can also hang your hat on the fact that now anyone that was like Jalen Hurts shouldn't be in the MVP consideration can eat crow, because clearly he was one of the reasons that the Eagles were good.
Right. Right. And I get people are like, someone, and I had retweeted it in my post-game misery today, but someone had put, the Cowboys went 4-1 with their backup quarterback, and the Eagles went 0-2 with theirs. And somebody's like, this isn't the flex you think it is. Like, it means you went, and it gave the records with their starting quarterbacks, and the Eagles' record with the starting quarterback is much better than the Cowboys' record with their starting quarterback.
Yeah.
But, like, I understand. There are concerns. I feel like a lot of my concerns stem from the injuries, which they'd been able to avoid the first half of the season, and they're not avoiding them now, which happens in the NFL.
Biggest one was, early in the season it was Jordan.
Right. Yeah. Jordan Davis.
I want to say Smith. I was like, that's not right. Jordan Davis missed about a month or so when they got run over by the the Commanders.
Yes.
And
a new mascot.
New mascot, yeah. Immediately addressed that with personnel moves, and they've been fine since. And honestly, I thought they looked pretty good, including Minshew last week against Dallas.
Yeah, it was turnovers. They turned the ball over 4 times. You're not going to beat a good team when you do that.
So disappointed, but not surprised, or there aren't alarms going off when you lose to Dallas last week.
No.
What about this week, though?
So this week, the problem I have this week, and this is the problem I have, is the same problem from 2 weeks ago when they played the Bears. Not the Dallas game, but 2 weeks ago, is the coaching. The offensive play calling was horrendous. 2 weeks ago, I think Miles Sanders had 1 carry or 2 carries before halftime against the Bears. Like 2. And guess what? Jalen Hurts carried it 17 times. Now, it wasn't before halftime that he got hurt. He got hurt after halftime in the third quarter. But guess what? When you have 17 runs for your quarterback and only 2 for your running back, who the week before was the first running back for the Eagles since LaShawn McCoy to go over 1,000 yards in a season, and then you just don't give him the ball. You just don't give him the ball. Like, I don't understand.
Well, what was the game plan?
And then,
there?
I don't understand it. Dallas game was fine. Like, they didn't execute at some things, but like the third string safety didn't get over to make the play on 3rd and 30. Yeah, that can't happen, but like, it's the third string safety. He screwed it up, despite what T.Y. Hilton, he's like, yeah, I got even with Slay and left. It was a cover 2 zone, and he was covering the flat. Like, he didn't even turn his hips. You didn't, T.Y. Hilton has been a good pickup for them. I'm not trying to say that, but like, that play wasn't the safety didn't get over. But like, the play calling today, they had 1 first down, and it was literally right before halftime in the first half. It was terrible. Well, in one series, and this might have been the second series, they got the ball. Miles Sanders, 4 yards on first down, 4 yards on second down.
Pass.
Pull him out of the game, run a read option
with Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell?
With Kenneth Gainwell, run a read option, but Gainwell doesn't get the ball because They just sit on him, and guess what? Gardner Minshew got tackled for no gain. So another
But
3 and out.
Gardner
Like,
Minshew's not Jalen Hurts.
right.
Is that what
So
you're saying?
it's like you and Dale Johnson's like, yeah, you can't get anything going. They just had 4 yards,
They
yards.
stopped themselves.
Right, you want 4 yards. 4 yards is the number you want. Get to 4.
Honestly, if you're getting 3 and you have 4 downs, guess what?
Right. So, like, you look at that. They also had a touchdown taken off the board that would have given them the lead. Or there was a point up until really late in the game where 4 points would have had them in the lead.
Right.
And it was a 4-point penalty. And Daryl Johnston and the other
Was that the
announcer-
holding on Landon Dickerson?
Yeah. Where,
Totally a hold.
oh, my gosh. You know what? I think Tua just got another concussion.
Hold on. Here. Breaking news. This
Right.
is not fake news either.
Oh, my gosh.
Teddy Bridgewater sustained broken finger on throwing hand in third quarter of Sunday's loss to the Patriots.
Oh, man.
So,
Yeah. So like the play calling is the issue I have, because now you're going into this game against the Giants and you have to win, and the Giants don't. The Giants don't have to. The Giants can actually rest their starters because they can't win the division. The Giants can rest starters, and they may.
I think
Like,
they do.
You have Daniel Jones and Saquon. You need them to
Now-
Saquon. You need to rest, in my opinion, if you're them, because he's been prone to injuries. He's such a big part of your offense. I can't imagine not. Now,
I wonder if they rest him the whole game, though.
right, they may start him.
I feel like they might, even
But
if it's
I
just
almost,
a series
I
or a
almost
quarter.
feel like that. I don't want to say it's worse, but I almost feel like at that point
I guess I wonder, is it
it's more awkward, because then like the guys who know they're going in aren't in to start the game. Like I don't know. It's
guess-
also different in the NFL because they only dress 49 guys on or 48 guys on are dressed on it.
Oh yeah, I guess if
any
they
given day.
you
It's
make
so
them
weird.
inactive immediately, you can make sure that they have
Right.
the other guys dressed and not. Because then, if the backup quarterback
But, like-
would get hurt, Jones
But like
would have to go in.
Thibodeau missed significant time this year due to injury, and is a big part of their defense. Do you
He's
play him?
About to get fined.
Yes. You know who else should be fined is Justin Jefferson, who hit an official with his helmet today.
Oh, I missed that.
So he went to slam it after one of the picks. He stops himself, but it still hit the back of the official.
Oh, he'll probably get
Now,
fined.
not hard, but like,
Yeah.
he's lucky
Did
he
he get
stopped.
Did he get a penalty?
No, if
He'll
he
be fined.
if he lets it go, oh my gosh,
They could have ejected him.
yes.
No, but I'm
I'm
glad
not-
they
and-
didn't though, because like the incident, like there's a difference between
He wasn't swinging the helmet at the
Right.
official.
Well,
Like,
there'd be more than a fine if you were swinging your helmet at an official.
however, when we look at it, it's just one of those things where the Eagles have some issues. However, I feel like they could get right. Like they could. It's just unfortunate because now they need to play the guys. Like they could have rested. Like if they win today, which they should have won today. Like Gardner Minshew played better against the better team. He played awful today, but the coaching was awful today too. The defense was bad on the first drive. It was not bad. They were good after that.
This was a Saints team that's not good.
After the first drive, the defense only gave up 2 field goals. The other one was the pick 6. So like, the defense is what it is, but like they didn't play bad after the first drive.
Eagles offense was just not good today.
Yeah, they're bad, and they were so discombobulated. There was
Play
like,
calling, coaching, game plan not there. They couldn't take advantage
and
of whatever
I
Gardner
put
Minshew
that on
gives
the
you.
coaches. Like,
Yeah.
like if you can't come up with a game plan that's different than what you have with Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew can't be your backup.
Right.
You need
You
to
have
have
to
a guy-
adjust.
Right. You have to do one or the other. You either come up with a different game plan,
Or
or
you
you have a
sign
guy who can like
A lesser Jalen Hurts
right
to come
right.
in.
You sign a guy who can run and throw, not to the level of Jalen Hurts, but there are lots of guys you could have out there who can fill that role.
Off-season acquisition, Tyler Huntley.
Yeah.
4th alternate for the Pro Bowl.
My gosh. So anyway, it's disappointing. It's also disappointing because the Eagles could have beat the Saints, which would help their own draft status in this coming year. Like, there's so much there that it was just disappointing. And part of me, and again, am I biased? Yes, this is the homerism coming through. in all 3 Eagles losses this year, I feel like the Eagles beat themselves. They turned it over 4 times last week against Dallas and still had a shot at it at the end of the game. Like, they had to throw into the end zone. Okay. Against Washington, they lost and they had turnovers in that game, like including one when Dallas Goedert, who got hurt on the play because he got his head ripped off from the face mask that the official didn't call and fumbled the ball.
Good no call.
And then, and Quez Watkins fumbled on a play in that game. Like, that was just bad. And then today, the Saints aren't good, and they just weren't ready to go.
Right.
The offense was awful in the first half. The offense had one good drive, and it was a 78-yard touchdown pass to A.J. Brown, which I'll take.
Yeah, you needed, and you are set to win our fantasy football league again.
Don't jinx it.
All you need is for Jamar Chase to not have 200 yards and 3 touchdowns tomorrow night.
I'm not at all confident. Not at all confident.
I thought for sure when I saw what Minshew wasn't doing, I thought you were in trouble in that game. But you had Kittle. Do you have Kittle have a big game?
So I had a good right. So and I made one bad move this week with my roster.
He's not starting Minshew because he wants to. He obviously has Jalen Hurts as his quarterback. But.
And I didn't have a backup until an emergency,
which we talked about on this show.
Yes. But I had Kamara didn't do great, but didn't blanket me. He didn't get a job. I put McKinnon in at the last second. I'm like, how long can this streak go for McKinnon? He got 19.5 points today.
Did he? Oh, wow.
He only had 4 yards rushing.
Oh, so receiving.
But he had 2 receiving touchdowns.
Oh. So what was the bad move?
Evans on my bench.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But my 2 wide receivers,
A.J. Brown
was 20 points. Ayuk got 23.5 points.
Okay.
So those.
So what about your flex?
Good. My flex, I picked up Algier.
Did he do
anything?
Falcons?
He got 15.5. He scored a
okay.
touchdown.
Yeah, so,
right.
Sure, you would like the points from Mike Evans, but the guys you played in those spots.
Everyone else, I made the right move. Every single other one, I made the right move. Yeah, it was funny. Greg and I were texting back and forth about crazy endings we wanted. He was hoping that the Raiders would win on a 75 yards Josh Jacobs walk-off touchdown again because
I was gonna say it happened before.
And I'm hoping that the Niners get a bunch of yards with Ayuk and Kittle, who I had in. I mean, they both had good games and both had a touchdown, but have to kick the field goal, and then the Raiders come down and kick a 50-some yarder with Carlson, who's been my kicker. It's just
that's fun, back and forth.
Yeah, it was fun, but I am up.
52 points or something like that, right?
I'm up 134.
He just have Jamar Chase?
Only Jamar Chase left.
Justin Jefferson let him down today.
Yes, he did.
He only got 2.5 points or something like that.
Yes.
It wasn't a lot.
I think it might be 1.5.
So,
something like that. He had 1 catch. No, it's 2 points. No, I guess it would be 1 point.
MVP Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. My gosh.
We don't have time to get into that. But the great thing about Week 18 coming up here is a bunch of teams have clinched playoff spots.
This is not a great thing.
A bunch of teams have clinched playoff spots. I think is there only one in each conference that's up for grabs still? We know all the other teams,
I think it's
right?
the last playoff spot. Well, there's one playoff.
No, there's two available in the AFC.
But one of them is a head-to-head game,
right?
Which is awesome. I love
and
the head-to-head
is for one of the division matchups.
You know what? Maybe you put that as the Sunday night game next week because it doesn't depend on anything else.
Yeah, but Jaguars Titans not going to move the needle Ravens Steelers or not Ravens Steelers, right. Ravens Bengals.
Here's a crazy Ravens Steelers stat. Do you know how many times Lamar Jackson has faced the Steelers?
3 times.
Yeah, you saw that.
No, I didn't. That was a guess.
It's 3. He's only played the Steelers 3 times.
Well, he didn't play until late in his rookie year.
Right.
And he's been injured for the bunch of the other ones.
He's in his 5th year.
So he should have played them at least 10 times. And they're in the same division,
right.
Right. He should have played them at least 10 times.
Right.
But he was backup for the first.
Right. So if you give him
a bunch of the first.
If you give him 8.
So he's been injured for 5 of the 8 matchups he probably should have had against them.
Right.
Did they play in the playoffs at all in those 5 years too?
I don't believe so. I don't know that. But
that would make it worse.
No,
he had an extra matchup or 2.
So at a minimum, he's missed 5 if you don't count the rookie ones because I don't know when they played that year.
Yeah. So All right, so there's 5 of 7 spots clinched in the AFC, but none of them have clinched the spot, I believe, that they're in
The
right
Vikings
now.
clinched that they can't be the 1 seed now because of their loss and the Niners win today.
Right, because they can only match the Eagles in wins, losses, but the Eagles have the tiebreaker. So the
Right.
Vikings can no longer be the 1 seed and have a bye.
Right.
The Eagles win, they're the 1 seed. The Eagles lose and the 49ers win, they're the 1 seed. Vikings could still, I guess, theoretically move up to 2 should the 49ers lose next week. Buccaneers are your 4 seed. That's solidified because they won the division today, and they're the worst record-wise in of the 4 divisions in the NFC. Cowboys likely the 5 unless the Eagles lose next week and the Cowboys win. Cowboys will win the division and catapult up until actually they could possibly move up to the 2 seed.
Right. I don't know where they are with some of the other teams.
Well, they
like,
beat the Vikings head to head.
they beat the Vikings. I don't know. Did they play the Niners?
I can't recall.
I can't either.
Would have to pull it up.
Right.
Would have to pull it up. In the AFC, I don't think anything is decided other than one of the in-hunt spots is the AFC South Division, and they
Yes.
will be the 4. So whoever
Right.
wins the Jaguars-Titans game next week is the 4 seed.
Here, that's an interesting one because, like, man, if the Jaguars win that game, like, are they a team where you're like, yeah, I don't want to play. Who's the highest? Well, and then you could have someone like the Ravens or Bengals having to go play the Jaguars. That would be fascinating to me. Like, if Joe Burrow and them had to go to Jacksonville, like, I feel like that could be an entertaining game. Like, that could be a very entertaining game.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm with you.
Like, and I think the Bengals win that game. I'm not trying to like down. I'm just like
Where are we at here?
that could be a really cool one.
Steelers-Ravens is 3-3 in the
Yeah.
early second.
True Steelers Ravens fashion
Yeah.
this year.
Honestly, I would like to see Pittsburgh win this game.
I want the Ravens to win because I want a Ravens Bengals winner take all next week.
Oh, if the Ravens lose, can they not win
No,
the
I
division
shouldn't say, I
anymore?
shouldn't say winner take all because both teams have clinched playoff spots. But I think
I guess it would only matter maybe if the Bengals then lose to the Bills. If the Ravens lose,
yes, if the Bengals will lose to the Bills, they could still
it could
would
still
be-
matter.
right? Yeah.
Okay. I don't want that to happen though.
But I don't know how that would affect like the division records. Like,
yeah, there's
a
a lot going on. How about the Chargers? This is interesting.
Yeah, getting
10
healthy.
10-6, sort of getting healthy. They play a lot of weird games. They're a team that plays weird games. We feel like we always see this
Right.
out of them. But it's been the same thing for like 20 years
I'll be honest.
because they did it throughout
Now, I've
Philip
been-
Rivers' reign.
I've been
there.
terrible at picks this year. Absolutely terrible. I thought the Rams were going to beat them this week just because I thought it's the Chargers.
Right.
Like they're going to Charger. Like they're going to like and the Rams last week with looked like they got the spark, with Baker Mayfield, like I'm like, "Oh man. Nope.
All right.
Chargers handled it today."
I know I said
However, Justin Herbert did not have a huge game, which was
Hey,
good for me.
all you need is
fantasy football.
the W.
Yeah, he had a good game, but like I just mean from a fantasy standpoint, that was beneficial to me.
I'm trying to think here. Were there any other surprising games today or games that really stood up? Lions destroyed the Bears 41-10,
man,
took care of that.
Did the Lions? Who'd they lose to? Was it last week they lost?
Yeah, to the Panthers.
Gosh,
But I mean,
and
Campbell was like, what did he say? You basically that you learn more from losses than wins, and that one's on like
yeah,
you play better when your back's against the wall. Like a lot of coaching cliches. Well, I mean, the Lions,
Right,
to a T,
Now,
a T.
again, this isn't a comment against the Seahawks because honestly, if I look at potential teams that the Eagles could play, and I don't even necessarily mean first round, but like I'd rather the Eagles play the Seahawks than either the Packers or the Lions again.
Mm-hmm.
However, in isolation, the viewer me, I want to see Lions, Packers, winners in, losers out.
Yeah,
Like that would.
and
be
I
cool.
want that to be the Lions. No, you and I are both
badly.
fans of Ron Rivera.
I am a
It
fan.
was a
of Ron
little
Rivera.
wacky today that he didn't apparently realize that they could be eliminated with that loss today.
Yeah.
That
was weird. I don't think it's as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be, just because I'm like, like
I guess the
he's focused on
insinuation is
winning,
well, right?
like-
Is the insinuation is did they play Carson Wentz because they didn't care if they wanted? Like that's not what was being done. They weren't
Right.
happy with the way Taylor Heineke's been
right.
playing.
He had leveled out, bottomed out, and
Yeah.
the offense wasn't getting it done. Carson Wentz
Too
didn't get
early,
it done
two
either.
first half interceptions.
one on his third pass, and it was bad. Like it wasn't like we saw it in college and we saw it in the pros every week. Some picks aren't on the quarterback. The first Carson Wentz one was the only one I actually saw. I think. No, I saw the deep one in the end zone too. So I saw the first and the third. But whenever we have to distinguish between which picks were your fault and which ones weren't, usually not a good sign.
49ers Raiders was a fantastic game.
So this is one that surprised me. Not that the Niners won, but that the Raiders, I thought they were going to pack it in because I was not on board with this team rallying
and
around Stidham.
a
I thought they
weird
were gonna
Derek
fall
Carr
off.
situation,
Yeah.
right? But Stidham looked by and large pretty good
Yeah. Until
the end.
right.
Things at the end got a little out of
On
hand.
the other hand, the screw it, I'm throwing it deep is what kept him in the game. And, that Devontae Adams catch was absolutely absurd.
Adams had a great game, looked really good. Raiders have been eliminated from the playoffs. 49ers, though, were playing for seeding and got
They have a
the
chance
win
at
in
the 1 seed.
overtime. They still could
Yeah.
get the 1 seed. They've now won 9 in a row after beating Las Vegas in overtime 37-34.
And how about the stat continues? I don't know who the Niners played last week, but the teams that have played the Niners the week after you play the Niners have lost every game for like the last 12 weeks or something. So like next week's Raiders team,
Would
whatever that would
lose.
equal for like the last 3 months, whoever has played the Niners, they've lost their next game.
That Dolphins were one of them. So they lost to the Chargers the next week. Vikings again exposed as frauds. I tweeted this out.
Yeah.
I said, and do you see someone responded to me with a GIF that was Gordon Ramsay going, "Oh, F off" or something like that. And I wanted I wasn't gonna get into a Twitter beef, but I want to be like, what has showed you even in their 12 wins that they're a competent football team? And I just said it. Wins are the only thing that matters, right? But they have been exposed by every good team they've played.
Yeah. Including the Packers now. Like the
Right.
Packers now are a good team. Like
Better than they were in week 2.
exactly. So like I'm not saying they're a great team, but they're a good
They got
team.
destroyed by the Eagles. They got destroyed by the Cowboys. They got destroyed by the Lions. And now they got destroyed by the Packers.
Yeah.
All 4 of those teams are in the playoffs or on the fringes but are playing better right now.
Oh, and you beat they beat the Lions on a last second play or
Early in the season, right?
Like
week 1 or 3 or something like
it wasn't
that.
one because the Eagles beat them week
sorry,
1. That's
yeah,
the only
right.
reason I know. But
I
like,
think it was week 3 or 4.
yeah, like so.
They have been very fortunate.
Right.
Some would say
Like-
lucky
right,
to
yeah.
win these close games that they have. And eventually
Well,
that's
look at
going to
the point
stop.
differential, and it's going to come back again now because of
Oh,
this
yeah.
game. So, like, if you look at it, if I look at the teams in the playoff picture in the NFC, I'm taking the Eagles over the Vikings. I'm taking the Cowboys over the Vikings. I'm taking
49ers.
the 49ers over the Vikings. I'm not taking the Bucks over the Vikings.
No.
Like I'm not
or the
saying
Giants.
that's not to say that the Bucks can't beat them.
So the Vikings are the 4th best team in the NFC. Is that where you would put them in front of the Bucks and Giants? But are they better than the Lions?
So if the Lions see, here's the thing: if the Lions or Packers, whoever wins next week, I don't know that the Vikings are better
right now
than either of those teams. Now the difference, but here's the other thing: I don't think this is Eagles. I don't think going to Minnesota is as tough as going to Green Bay.
In January?
Right,
No,
right,
one of them's a dome.
Right. So like,
The only thing going against, if you have Kirk Cousins and the Vikings against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, the one thing going for them is that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in the playoffs suck.
yeah. But
So
Kirk Cousins in primetime
also sucks. Yeah. So well, they gotta hope that
it's the opposite of when they show those like two good trends. One of these has to end. It's like
two
bad
bad
trends.
trends. One of these has, unfortunately, right now I give the edge to Aaron Rodgers and the
Here
Packers.
Here you
so-
go though. If the standings hold, Eagles win, Niners win. Guess who the Packers, if they made it, would have to play in the first round of the playoffs? Like they get in as the 7th, they'd play the Niners in the first round again.
Oh yeah. Well, so I saw there's
It'd be 3 years in a row.
a follower or someone I follow on Twitter, who I believe is a Pennsylvania high school journalist, covers high school sports. Specifically, I follow him for high school football in Pennsylvania. He's not LL. He's not local
Right.
to LL Burks, but he's a huge 49ers fan. But he's akin to another sports writer we know and have listened to
gosh.
that
Yeah.
is constantly complaining about the team they love. And it is him with the 49ers every week. Like, I remember I've been following him for years, but I was watching his tweets when the Dolphins were playing the 49ers. And every game, 49ers can be up like 3 touchdowns, and he'll just be like, how's Shanahan going to screw this one? He hates Kyle Shanahan. Like, he thinks Kyle Shanahan is awful.
Now,
But he said, he's like, all that matters now is the 49ers are going to play the Packers in the first round. And so he's like, congratulations, Aaron Rodgers, for winning your playoff game against the Niners or something like that. I was like, your team is 12-4 and has
not
won 9 in a row.
right. Oh, and has a recent history of being Aaron Rodgers' demise in the playoffs. Like, here's the other piece that just reminded me of the faux disrespect. And I know this isn't exactly the same thing, but when Kirby Smart last night after the game was like, we've been disrespected all season. I'm like, you were the number one
Undefeated
team.
had been number one most of the season.
Right. I'll give them when Tennessee jumped. Okay. But they had struggled with Kent State and Kentucky or whatever in back-to-back weeks. But I want to be like, you're also the defending national champion. No.
No,
TCU
you don't get to
gets
play
to
that
play that
card.
card. You don't get to play that card.
Go TCU.
Oh, yes.
I don't like. I have a disgust towards Georgia only because they're part of that SEC Southern football culture.
No, absolutely.
That I just, it's part jealousy, part overexposure and obnoxiousness. Like, they just don't stop talking about it, and it's annoying, especially as a fan of a team in the Big Ten.
Right.
It is. But I don't really have anything against Georgia. I don't really care.
Right.
They're to me, they're not Alabama.
No.
Like in terms of my distaste for them, I don't have anything against Georgia. Like, whatever. But I do want to see TCU win because Georgia just won last year,
Right.
and TCU, why now? Why would you not cheer? It's just I was just watching highlights from the 2007 Oklahoma Boise State game.
Right.
Because everyone in the country was rooting for Boise State in that game because they had been disrespected all year
The way
long.
they won that
No
game,
one
man.
thought they could
Oh
win
my
it.
gosh.
They gave up a touchdown with a minute to play, and then Zabransky and company drives down the field, and they run not one but 2 trick plays
Right.
to tie the game and then win the game in overtime. Just fantastic. You run a hook and lateral and then a Statue of Liberty-esque play. Awesome. That's why college football is so much fun.
You know what they didn't run? The Philly special.
You know who did run that?
Oh my
Michigan.
gosh. That was
And someone else. Didn't someone else also run that and it didn't work?
yes.
It happened
Yes.
the same day of the same
Yes.
2 days in a row that people were running it and it wasn't
Yes.
working. So probably time to put that one in the mothballs.
Yeah.
Bring it out in a decade or so. Resurrect it then, kind of like the Dolphins and Ronnie Brown resurrected
Yes.
that Razorback or whatever they call it, Razor Hog or whatever that came from Arkansas, I think, into the NFL when the Dolphins were bad, and then they absolutely obliterated the Patriots. God, that was awesome. They obliterated that Patriots team.
It was
Dolphins
great.
weren't good that
It was
year,
great
but
because it was this gimmicky thing that the Patriots did not have
could
an
not
answer for.
stop.
They
Tom
did not
Ronnie
have an
Brown had
answer
what,
for.
5 touchdowns?
Right,
like 3 or 4 on the ground, and then he threw 1 or 2.
You see that in high school or middle school football. We've got this one thing that
Yeah.
they just absolutely cannot stop.
That was when I lived in Indiana, one of those 2 falls. I'm gonna guess it was. I guess it was the 2007 season. No, because the 2007 season they went 1-15, so it must have been the 2008 season. But that would have been the year with Pennington, right? I don't know. Maybe my years are coming together. I thought that game happened while I lived in Indiana because I thought I remember being at my apartment complex's gym, working out, and I'm watching. And I'm just like, is this real life? Is this actually happening right now? The Dolphins are destroying Belichick and the Patriots. I believe that game was in New England too.
I think it was. It was.
So, yeah. But anyways, to wrap things up here with our final 10 minutes or so of the show, looking at the playoff picture, a lot of enticing matchups. What I wanted to ask you was, let's just take the 7 teams as they're listed here.
Okay.
Assume they're making the playoffs. So
Okay.
in the AFC, it's Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Ravens, Chargers, Patriots. And then in the NFC, it would be Eagles, 49ers, Vikings, Bucks, Cowboys, Giants, Seahawks. what would be your championship game matchups? Like, who are your top 2 teams that you think could make it? Whether or not it could actually happen based on seedings, I'm not interested in that. Just who are your teams that you think should match up in the AFC and NFC championships
So
right
not
now?
who I want, who I think it
Who you think it will be? No,
Okay.
not rooting interest.
Okay.
Who do you think it will
I
be?
think in the NFC it's going to be Eagles Niners,
Okay.
and I think in the AFC I think it's going to be a rematch of Bills Bengals, like a rematch of tomorrow night.
Okay.
Of Bills Bengals. That's not necessarily my rooting interest. I mean, in the NFC, like okay, like Eagles are there. That's what I want. I want probably the Chiefs. Like just I don't know. I like Andy. Like I like Andy. Like
And Chad's still there.
now there's a couple things. Any of those top 3 in the AFC would create potential issues for me if the Eagles were to be the team facing them. in the
Yeah,
AFC.
you
Because,
do
like,
have major
the
issues
Chiefs,
there.
like there's a lot of people local. Well, obviously there's a lot of Eagles fans local, but like a lot of people have ties to the Chiefs because of Henny and like I like Andy Reid and all that stuff. But like, okay, like I could get over that. Would probably be the easiest. The Bills would be tough. Adam.
No
Adam
way,
is the-
that makes it
Adam-
even
Adam,
better. Well,
Adam is the Bills fan.
Makes it even better if the Eagles beat the Bills.
Right, but if they lose, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst thing that could happen. Yes.
The Bengals. This is probably the
Bengals,
worst case
Eagles.
scenario because
Dude,
my son is a Bengals.
I'm
fan.
watching that game with you in
Oh
Austin.
my gosh,
I'm gonna
dude.
sit there in my Joe Burrow jersey right next to
I'm
him.
gonna make him go to bed. Nope, you're not allowed to watch. Tell him what I told him before we went to the Auburn Penn State Whiteout game. If you're gonna root for Auburn, I'm not taking you to this game. Like,
Well,
now,
that is
he-
unacceptable.
he
Austin.
also, as he's gotten older, he has gotten better. Like he roots for the Eagles. The Bengals are his favorite team. Like he likes the Eagles because I like the Eagles.
right.
But the Bengals are his favorite team. If it was Bengals Eagles Super Bowl, that's like
I'm getting my popcorn for that
Oh my
one. I'm
gosh.
just sitting there enjoying it.
see all the stuff that would be passive aggressive if it was Steelers Eagles that we've previously discussed on this show about how that is my nightmare. Eagles Steelers Super Bowl. All the stuff that would be passive aggressive would just be out in the open, like screaming at each other, and it would be tough because my heart would explode trying to like hold everything in, good or bad. Actually, if it's good, I might not hold it in, but like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'd have that problem of if the Eagles beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl of also making my son cry, like
and well,
by rubbing it in.
you had to tell him last year that they lost in the Super
Oh,
Bowl,
it sucked.
but you were also pulling for them last year.
Yeah, I wanted them to win last year.
So, all right. So your NFC expected matchup is Eagles 49ers.
That's what I'm going with now.
What do you think in the AFC? Do you think Bills Bengals?
I think it is Bills Bengals.
You think it's
I
Bills,
think it's
Bengals?
Bills Bengals.
Okay.
I honestly I don't know if I favor the team that wins tomorrow night, or if I favor the team that loses tomorrow night. Now I say that a lot of that depends on if the Bengals were to lose tomorrow, but
That game's
Beat-
in Cincinnati.
I think it's in Buffalo.
That game's in Buffalo.
I thought it was. I could be wrong.
Well, let's pull it up here.
Make
Make sure. Where is it? Here is it at the top.
oh, it's in Cincinnati.
Okay.
Okay. But like assuming if the Bengals were to lose, but then still win next week and win a division,
So
if they were to if the Bengals were to lose this week and lose next week, I feel like that would not be good to be backing into the playoffs. Not that I would doubt them. I mean, we just saw them go last year, but like it's crazy because they could be the 1 seed or they could be like the 6
5 seed.
or something. Yeah, it's wild.
So, per our standard operating procedure, I echo everything you just said. I do believe it's going to be Eagles 49ers in Philadelphia. And I believe it's going to be. So, I think it's going to be Bills Bengals back in Cincinnati, but I think Buffalo wins.
Okay.
I'm not ready to make a prediction on
No, no,
Philadelphia
no.
and San Francisco, but exactly what you said. Whoever wins the game tomorrow night, I actually favor the team that loses,
It's so hard
in the
to beat a
playoffs.
team twice,
especially if
like
it's
the
going
good
to be within a
teams.
month of each
Right,
other,
right,
like a few
right.
weeks. So, and I'm not discounting the Chiefs because I'm never going to sell Patrick
No.
Mahomes and Andy Reid short.
Right.
But I feel like, unfortunately, like we saw with the Phillies in the early 2010s,
Right.
They win the World Series in 2008. They lose the World Series in 2009. They lose the NLCS in 2010. They lose the Division Series in 2011. They don't make the playoffs in
How
2012.
about Patrick Mahomes has never played a road playoff game?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Not counting Super Bowl, like where they
Right,
may have been
that's
quote-unquote
neutral,
road team.
yeah.
Right. He's never played a road playoff game.
So I feel like, unfortunately, and this is just a crazy thing that I'm pulling. I feel like, we saw the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Then we saw them lose the Super Bowl. Then we saw them lose the conference championship game. I feel like we're going to see them lose if they're the 1 seed, their first playoff game this year. If they're not the 1 seed, their second play. I think they win the wild card game if they're the 2 or the 3 seed, depending on how things work out.
So, but like who'd be? You think they lose to like the winner of the Well, if it's Jags Bengals, I guess they could, or Jags Ravens.
That's the only way that it works out, that you
Right,
see them
right,
regress
right,
by a
right,
round
right,
each
right.
year. I'm not saying that that's a guarantee to happen,
Right,
but like if they're the 2 seed, they're beating the Dolphins or the Patriots.
Right, right.
I don't have, especially in Kansas City. Like there's no way the Dolphins or Patriots or whoever else it could be.
Dolphins
Steelers
would
randomly.
be crazy interesting if like Tua's healthy and they got and you got Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City.
Yeah,
and,
well, people were clamoring for that a few weeks ago when it looked like the Dolphins were going to be possibly somewhere between the 2 and 5 seed, but now they're struggling to get the 7. But I don't see if the Chiefs are like the 2 or 3, I don't see them losing to the 7 or 6 seed. But like the next week, they're then going to have to play either Buffalo or Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
So
there's a bunch of good games potentially out there
because Chad's still there. If the Dolphins are out or when they lose, I'm pulling for the Chiefs because I hate the Bills. I hate the Ravens. I don't really have anything against the Chargers right now. Ask me in the late 90s, I was very mad at the
Chargers team came on and went on and I don't think it's out of the question. It's just I can't trust them yet, right?
Right.
I can't trust them yet.
And I'd take the Jaguars over the Titans for that. I would be for the Jaguars, but with Chad still in Kansas City, once the Dolphins are out, I'm all in on the Chiefs. It just can't be the Bills or the Ravens.
See,
that's where I'm at.
The thing is,
no Bills, no Ravens.
I look at the AFC, and I wouldn't necessarily call any of these teams pretenders. I wouldn't call any of them pretenders. There's some I'm more confident in than others, but if the Ravens get Lamar back, I don't think they're pretenders. I don't know that they're good enough to win it, but I don't think they're pretenders. On the NFC side, I look at it, I'm like, I think this might be blasphemous because Tom Brady, and I still don't want to play him. But the Bucks, just everything they show, what's going on? But you look at it also the Vikings, like we said, I don't.
Yeah. Well, and NFC wise, I won't say I completely against being Tampa Bay. I don't want it to be Tampa Bay. I highly doubt it'll be Tampa Bay, but I'm not completely 100% against it. I just don't whatever. I don't want it to be Green Bay. They're my number one in the NFC. If they make it,
it is absolutely Dallas.
Well, for obvious reasons. Just like in the AFC, for obvious reasons, it would be Bills and Patriots should they make it.
The problem is I might have 2 teams like that. It's the Giants and but
see, I'm Saquon, baby.
No,
run wild.
I saw the report just before we went on air that I guess the Giants have their quote unquote their number in mind. The negotiation has started for Saquon and Daniel Jones. The Giants have their number.
Is this Saquon's 5th year?
It is.
So
and Daniel Jones, they didn't pick up the option. This is his 4th, so they're both free agents.
They're both set.
Yeah. I hope they sign them both to massive deals, which they won't. They're not going to do that.
Can't do that. They haven't.
No, which is why they should, because I want it to wreck their franchise.
Well, they'll sign one. Don't you think they'll franchise one and sign the other? Couldn't you franchise Saquon and do it?
See, I think you also get something else. So I think it's more interesting with Daniel Jones because as a quarterback, I think he still has a shot at a couple big contracts potentially. He's in a good system. Does he want to leave? Is he willing to take a deal? I think Saquon with and this isn't a statement about Saquon as much as it is a statement about the running back position in the NFL. This is his chance to hit his big contract. This is it. He's not
because of his injury history and the way the running backs.
Right. This is it. So I think if one of them is going to leave to get more money elsewhere, it's Saquon. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just, if I had to predict,
But they're
based
not
on
going to
the
let that
scenario-
happen. They're going to franchise him.
Right.
Like
Right.
he doesn't have much of a choice.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then still, you're paying him a ton for the 1 year. Then
Right, but
then
the
you've
franchise
gotta
tag on your quarterback is going to be higher than your
Oh, yeah.
franchise tag on your
Yeah.
running back.
And that number on quarterbacks is just going to be like that. You eventually have to sign him to is just going to be even higher the following year. You know, like it's just going to continue to get crazy.
I don't know what this was about. My dad called you a whiner.
I think
Or maybe he was
I think
calling me.
No,
He
it was
just
me.
wrote,
It
"What
was
a
me. It
whiner."
was me. I saw it pop up. It was me when I was talking about fantasy.
Oh,
Listen,
okay.
just because he didn't have to worry about fantasy for this week, like doesn't mean that I'm not still involved with it.
So I think that's pretty much it for us for this episode 365 here on New Year's Day 2023. Week 17 of the NFL almost in the books. We have the Steelers-Ravens game going on right now. Last I knew it was tied 3-3.
Yeah.
And that's nearing halftime. And then we have the big huge game Monday night, Bills at Bengals. And did you see the Athletic article about how big, like this is like the biggest Monday Night Football
Yes.
game between AFC teams since the 90s, I think, like 30 years or something like that, or almost 30 years. And they talked to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman about it. And this is a huge marquee matchup. Like, what a game. Unfortunately, it's happening the same night as Penn State's playing in the Rose Bowl, but there might not be much overlap because I believe they pushed Monday Night Football back 15 minutes or something like that
Okay.
to make sure there wasn't
Okay.
much of an overlap. Because they said the latest starting Monday Night Football game 8:30. Does it usually start at 8:15?
Yeah, which
Okay.
would make sense because it's the same network.
Oh right, yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. Well, ESPN does Monday night. ESPN doesn't have the Rose Bowl, right?
ABC does, but ABC, ESPN, same.
But they're not. It's not on ESPN.
No,
It's
no,
on
no, no.
ABC. And Monday
Right,
Night
right,
Football
right,
is on ESPN.
Right.
Right. Same family. Same Disney umbrella. But so we're gonna go right from Penn State, Utah, in the Rose Bowl to Bengals, Bills, where I will. Well, both games, huge rooting interest. Huge rooting interest. So I'm gonna have my Penn State jersey on, and then immediately throw my Joe Burrow jersey on. Immediately.
Yeah.
And hopefully that'll be after a Penn State win.
Oh man, that would be amazing for Penn State to win tomorrow. That would just be
Only the
such
second time ever
It would
to
be,
win the
it would
Rose
be
Bowl.
great momentum going into the offseason.
And where you got most of your guys coming back. The only one leaving,
See, Caden Wallace is coming back too.
yeah.
So,
So
at
so-
least 3 of the linemen coming back.
Joey Porter Jr. opted out, isn't playing in the bowl game, entering the draft, won't be back. We kind of all expected that and knew
I
that.
can't blame you.
Parker
Duke could be a
Washington
top 10 pick.
Declared for the NFL draft, but he was injured, wasn't going to play in the Rose Bowl anyways. Wish he would have came back, but isn't.
Right.
Then Nick Tarburton is leaving, but the only year he's skipping is his COVID year, right?
This was his 5th year.
Yeah,
Like,
so
he's already been there 5
I
years.
completely understand
He's
that.
not going the Sean Clifford route.
Right. So the biggest ones left for Penn State in terms of fall 2023 are Adisa Isaac and Curtis Jacobs. Those are the two
Right.
big ones because Olu Fashanu is coming back.
Right. I think the big thing,
A possible
and
top
I'm
5
sure,
pick.
I'm sure this is what they're telling them is like, look, you guys could be mid-round picks now, potentially. Probably third day in my mind, third day picks. You have the chance to be first or second day picks if you come back.
Right.
Like you come back and have a great year. But I also know it's not me having to make that decision.
No,
Like,
and I know, but
yeah.
I did, and I think I sent this to you, and this is all hearsay, supposedly, but I don't disbelieve it. The
Right.
Saban quote that I sent to you, where they had Bryce Young and Will Anderson
yeah.
playing in that bowl game. It wasn't a college football playoff game. It was
Right.
a pretty significant New Year's Six bowl game, but
Yeah.
those guys are probably top 5, top 10 picks
Yeah.
this coming year. But they came and played in the game.
Well,
But-
and-
and then he says, he's like, you have guys that are mid-round picks not playing.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense. And like, I understand that you need to make a business decision,
Right.
but the coach in me is always gonna be like, you need to play this in this game.
Right.
Like, I understand why Joey Porter Jr. is not,
Right.
but like, I'm still like, you should be playing this game.
Right.
You should be playing in this game. It's the Rose Bowl.
Right.
It's
Which is
not-
what most of the other guys have said. Like PJ Mustapher, who's going, like is leaving.
And
Like-
he's done. He has
Right.
to move on.
Right.
But he's
like,
playing.
But they're playing, and like he's like, it's the Rose Bowl.
A
wouldn't-
bunch of the guys have said, I came to Penn State to possibly play in a Rose Bowl. Why would I skip it?
Right.
Why would you skip it?
Right.
And with NIL and the way things have changed just in the last 2 years,
Right.
it's not me having to make that decision, but it's tough for me to still wrap my head around opting out about these bowl games, especially these big time bowl games.
Right.
So, but that's one of the blessed things of a pending 12-team playoff. You're going to have less people doing that. Because if you're opting out of college football playoff games, I'm not sure what you're really there for.
Right. Right. Exactly. Because I don't. Well, yeah. Yeah, because then all of a sudden, I know it's different, but if you've got like the big deals and stuff like that, are you?
What are you really missing out
Right.
on?
Right.
Like, because it takes a while to get those big contracts. Now, compartmentalize, because hundreds of thousands of guaranteed dollars is more than many people make.
Right.
But those big, like these huge contracts that they're always like, oh, you're missing out on all this money if you get injured. You could get injured in the NFL and not get one of those
Right.
contracts too.
Right.
And there's also tons of insurance options now available through this, both the school and these NIL partners. So that's always going to be a tough one. It was way worse last year than it was this year. And maybe that's just because the Penn State focus. Penn State lost, 6 or 7 guys last year against Arkansas. And this year only 1. So it doesn't feel like the impact is has been as profound. But I feel like I read this year about it was a lot different this year. There was a lot less players that opted out. And maybe that's, I don't know. There could be a million reasons for it. But I'm happy to see it because it's not a trend in college football that I think a lot of people were happy about, despite sort of understanding where they were coming from, but still not being happy about it.
Right.
So, all right. Well, last thing I want to say is I mentioned the belated birthday to my cousin Christine, but I did also want to mention upcoming birthdays
Did you?
for my nephew, Logan, turning 4 in a couple days. And then my sister turning way older than that, closing in on 40, depending like how you round things, which I get to point out to her now.
To be honest, I wasn't sitting there at the game when you were guessing, so I don't know how.
Oh, I knew how old she was.
It just
She's gonna be a year older in a few days.
Either way, it just reminds me of the quote our friend Pat said a few years ago. I think when he was like 38, he's like, don't think of it as, however, or maybe it was like when somebody turned 35, like, oh, don't think of it as however far, I'm halfway to 40. Think of it as I am 7/8 of the way to 40.
Oh, yes. Math and aging, fun combination. Doesn't make us sad at all. Last one I want to mention, though, celebrating a birthday yesterday was Coach Steve O'Neill, a listener of the show. And unfortunately, I mean, he got to hang his hat on his Wyoming Spartans this year. Not so much with his NFL rooting interest, which he was on the show just over a year ago to talk about his Denver Broncos. And we talked a lot of high school football, but we did touch on his Broncos fandom, and he had a rough year. Not great for him. Unfortunately, didn't get it done with Russell Wilson, and now they've already fired their rookie head coach after 13 to 14 games, whatever it was, 14 to 15 games.
Yeah, not ideal when you have 3 play callers in the same season.
So rough going there, but we do wish Steve a belated birthday to him, as well as my cousin Christine, and upcoming my nephew Logan and sister Corinne. So happy birthdays all around, and happy New Year to everyone else. Thanks for tuning in. Anything from you, Justin?
No, please win next week, Eagles, and just temporarily end this misery.
All right. Well, we will be back in 1 week time, Sunday, January 8th. We will recap Week 18 and look ahead to as many of the playoff matchups as we'll know. There'll still be 1 game left to go. We don't even know what game that will be, though.
I love that. That they just like a blank slate.
Hey, that's great.
Because there's Saturday games next week, too.
Yeah, and next year, I know this has nothing really to do with Week 18, but next year they can flex Monday night games.
That's crazy.
Now, I think they have to do it like 12 days in advance or something, but the end of the season needs that. Honestly, I wish they could flex like Thursday night games too. Put all those big matchups on prime time.
It would make
like
me
that.
anxious if I was a season ticket holder.
Yeah. Oh, that's the biggest hurdle
there's
for
a
sure.
Huge difference between like, oh yeah, I'll go to a game on a Sunday afternoon versus I'll go to a Monday night game.
Yeah, huge difference. But Yeah, so we'll recap 15 games next Sunday night and look ahead to whatever matchup is coming that Sunday night in the last game of the 2022 regular season in early January 2023. And then we can really drill into playoff and Super Bowl expectations and predictions.
Oh gosh, I'm
I
getting
guess
anxious.
Well, we'll have to get my uncle Rich. Will have to let us know how he did with our picks. I mean, he should know by the time we start the show next week. You should basically know every division and playoff matchup, save for maybe either the NFC North
Well,
or the AFC North.
I know my Super Bowl teams are both guaranteed to make the playoffs. I don't know much beyond that.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to go. I know he sent it to us before, like when the season first started. So I have to see if I can find that and revisit who I picked, because I feel like we're always like 50-50. Like we hit on 50% and we
I
blow
also
it
picked
out.
the Seahawks to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they could win their way into a playoff.
Same thing with the Jets, although they can't do that, but they were way better than I expected them to be. But all right, enough from us. That's it. Episode 365 on New Year's Day 2023 in the books. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in 1 week's time.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your email to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as the Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.